Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to be talking about Tefillot on Rosh Hashana. If you think about it, we spend most of our waking hours in shul on Rosh Hashana, and certainly understanding our Tefillot can make our day that much more meaningful, and that's what we're going to try and do today. It's going to be a real in-depth study of the prayers that we say, particularly one part of the prayers that we say. I'll explain as we go along. I want to begin with a statement from the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashana. So it's a Gemara about Rosh Hashana, and it says, although it's not specific to Rosh Hashana, but it is about it does apply to what we're going to talk about today. Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Le'olam yastir adam tefilato, v'achar kach yitpalel. For always and forever, a person should organize his prayers and then afterwards pray. And it's a simple statement. It's almost an obvious statement, but one that probably most people don't do most of the time. And that is, before praying, there's a responsibility. In other words, most of us come into prayers, I believe, most of us come into our prayers and we kind of just run right into them. And we kind of assume that it's going to work out all right. And then some of us have difficulty with, hey, how come my tefillah didn't go so well? So here this statement says, hey, before one even prays, there's a pre-game activity, so to speak, that you need to take, and that is you need to arrange, organize, put in order your prayers before you pray them. In other words, in order to have a successful prayer, you have to have the preparation beforehand, and that preparation means that you organize and put in order the things that you're going to say. Now, what's interesting is it uses the key term of the preparation is what? To put in order, right? And it seems like what's going to make your tefillah work is if there's some kind of organization. And that's going to be something that's going to play a heavy theme in what we're going to study today, is that there is a very significant organization to our tefillah, and being organized and being familiar with the organization really makes a big difference in our tefillah. So that's a key theme that we have for today. Okay, there's going to be a lot of visual, so I hope you have a chance to look at the screen. So when we say tefillah, prayers, what are we normally talking about? Although our prayers can take many forms, in halacha, and in the words of the rabbis, the main tefillah is the amidah. The amidah, which we say, which is at the center of the prayers that we say in the synagogue or even in our homes, or on the road, wherever it may be. The Amidah is the centerpiece of our tefillah. And the Amidah, you are probably familiar with, has a very clear structure. In fact, because it has this clear structure, it has another name. We call the Amidah the Shmoneh Esrei, the 18, because the Amidah is broken down into component parts. So let's quickly break down the Amidah into its component parts. Right? What are the component parts of the Amidah? Anyone want to pipe in? Feel free. Just unmute yourself. What are the component parts of the tefillah? Anyone? Okay, I'll do it myself if no one wants to. So the three component parts of the tefillah are the shevach, the bakasha, and the hoda'ah. Shevach means to praise. Bakasha means to ask, and hoda'ah means to give thanks. This is very popular, well known. Other ways of saying this: shevach is the wow, bakasha is the gimme or the please, and hoda'ah is the thank you. Our tefillah divides up very nicely into these three emotions. The amidah expresses each of these three emotions: the wow, the gimme, the thank you. And in fact, this breaks down into individual sections. Each section is a beracha unto itself, to the point that we get 18, which is really 19 berachot, as I'm going to show you. The first section, which is the shevach section, the wow section, has 3 berachot in it: avot, giburot, and kiddushat Hashem. I'm not going to go into what each one of these berachot contain. The last section of the amidah, the hoda'ah, has 3 berachot: the retzeh, the modim, and the shalom. So we see that there's 6 berachot, 3 in the beginning, 3 at the end. Of course, that means in the center, the bakasha has the bulk of the berachot. The bulk of the berachot I listed here. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but there are 13 berachot in the center. There were 12, and they either added 1 or split 1 into 2. But basically, what you're looking at on your screen, if you have a chance to look at the screen, is the basic structure, which is very, as you can see, organized, of our Amidah that we say once a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, Yom Kippur 5 times a day. But this is the basic structure of an Amidah, Shevach, Bakasha, Hoda'ah, which breaks down into these 3 different parts with different brachot. Now, if you're a little more familiar with the Amidah and a little more familiar with the prayers, you know that this actually only applies on the weekdays. On the weekdays, this is how it works. However, on our special days, the holidays, the Shabbat, the Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh, and so on, the Amidah changes a little bit. Now, how does it change? So the Shevach and the Hoda'ah never change. They stay the same. They are always 3 in the beginning, 3 at the end, pretty much the same words all the time. However, the Bakasha, that big chunk in the middle, which is the centerpiece, that piece will often disappear. And in place of all of those 13 brachot that we say, on a Shabbat, we say, or Yom Tov or Rosh Chodesh, we say 1 bracha, and that 1 bracha relates to something that we have during the day, something about Shabbat, something about Yom Tov, something about Rosh Chodesh. And that bracha in the center talks about that, and that's our Amidah, which, by the way, means that the Amidah on Shabbat, Yom Tov, Musaf of Rosh Chodesh is generally shorter than the weekday Amidah because it's only 1 bracha. It's usually a little bit of a longer bracha, but it's nevertheless shorter than the 13 brachot, which it replaces. Again, it replaces these 13. It replaces these 13 brachot. Those fall away, and we have this. And you know, some people ask, why do we do this? A couple of possible reasons. One reason might be because we want to say something relative to the day. Another reason might be because we expect to spend a lot of time in shul. Since we expect to spend a lot of time in shul, so we don't want to make the shul too unbearable for everyone. So therefore, they shorten the Amidah. So there's different reasons explained for it. Maybe they're both true. But this is all a quick summary of everything that happens the rest of the year. However, most people who are even a little bit familiar with Rosh Hashana know that on Rosh Hashana, we break the rule. We don't follow the rule that applies the rest of the year. It's not 18 brachot, it's not 7 brachot, it's a different concept. On Rosh Hashana for Musaf, that means the additional prayer that we say during which we blow the shofar, so you should be familiar with it. And we, Sephardim, have an extra added aspect of it that's interesting, which is that we blow the shofar in the middle of the Amidah, which is very jarring for people. Instead of doing the setup that we have on the screen, we have a completely different setup. And that it's a unique setup that applies only 1 time a year, only on Rosh Hashana, only for Musaf. And how does it work? So it works like this. Hold on, let's see, I'm not. It works as follows. Instead of the 1 Amidah, instead of the 1 bracha, we have 3 brachot in the center. And those 3 brachot that are in the center, Malchiyot, then Zichronot, then Shofarot, those 3 brachot take a long time, and they're quite long. They even have the shofar in them. And as a result, unlike any other time of the year, we don't have 18 brachot, we don't have 7 brachot, we end up having 9 brachot. And what I'd like to do for the rest of today's lesson, for the rest of today's class, is to explore this very unusual structure, which, as you can see, has a very clear structure. The structure is very, very important to understanding it. And we're going to see what the structure of the brachot are and what lesson it teaches us. So quickly, if you've been paying attention, this is a quick stop and review. What we're saying is that our prayers are very, very organized and very, very structured. And a key to understanding them and making them meaningful for us is to understand their structure. And so far, what we've been saying is the basic structure is, wow, gimme, thank you. And that please, that gimme in the center is the centerpiece of the tefillah, and it changes on various different days. And what we'd like to explore is the uniqueness of the prayers that we say on Rosh Hashana, which have these 3 brachot, which we don't know what they mean yet. That's what we're going to talk about now. But we're going to look at these 3 brachot and see how they work in order to help us understand the tefillah better. I'm going to stop for a second and just see if anyone has any questions, because I did that pretty quickly. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves, ask any questions on anything that we said so far, any thoughts on anything that we said so far, bechavod. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to roll forward. Any questions, anyone? 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're going to roll forward. Okay, so the next thing to do is to now say, oh, wonderful, we've been looking at structure. Does the structure help us with the berachot themselves? And the answer is, you bet. In fact, what you're going to see is what you see on my screen right now, is that for each of the 3 berachot in the Amidah that we saw, for the Malchuyot, the Zichronot, and the Shofarot, for each one of the 3, you can then sub-break down the berachot into the table that you have in front of you. The beracha will break down into a few different parts. Part 1 is what you see on the top of the screen where it says emunah. Each beracha is going to have a statement of emunah, a statement of faith, something I say I believe in, something that we all believe in. That's the opening of the beracha. That statement of faith is then going to be backed up. It's going to be backed up by 10 Pesukim, 10 verses from the Bible, and in a very clear structure. It's going to have 3 Pesukim from the Torah, that'll be in the first column, then 3 Pesukim from the Tehillim, that's the second column, then 3 Pesukim from the Nevi'im, that's the third column, and then a summary Pasuk from the Torah. So that actually ends up being 4 Pesukim from the Torah, but that last one is kind of like the knockout blow. And all of these Pesukim tie into that statement that we said above of what we believe, right? So it's a statement of belief, but it's not just that we believe, it's backed up by Pesukim. And finally, after the statement of belief and it's backed up by Pesukim, we have an ask of Hashem that is based on the statement of faith. In other words, something we believe leads us to ask Hashem for the realization of something. We want something, we need something, and we're here to ask for it. And that's why this is in the Bakasha section, the asking section of the Amidah. Okay, so I know I'm moving quickly, but now you're going to see it all unfold. And if you keep tabs from now, you're going to see that actually this can help you understand the prayers that you're going to say on Rosh Hashana in a very, very major way. So let's start. Let's do the first beracha. The first beracha is the beracha that we call Malchuyot. Malchuyot. Now, Malchuyot is a very interesting title. You could see the word Melech. And in fact, that's the statement of faith. The statement of faith that we make is Aleinu l'shabeach Adon HaKol. And many people should be familiar with this if you're used to praying the Rosh Hashana Amidah. It's a very unusual feeling because it's a tefillah that we're very familiar with. The tefillah known as Aleinu l'shabeach appears in a very unusual place. Everyone knows Aleinu l'shabeach because Aleinu l'shabeach serves a very particular role the rest of the year. The rest of the year, Aleinu l'shabeach is the last thing we say before shul. In fact, as a joke, some people like to call Aleinu l'shabeach Tefillat HaDerech, the prayer that they say along the way. Because by the time we get to Aleinu l'shabeach, a number of people are already on their way out the door, right? They're already walking out the shul. So a little bit of a rabbinical tefillah joke, but the idea that it's saying is that, listen, Aleinu l'shabeach is normally put at the end of the tefillah. In fact, where does it originate? It probably doesn't originate at the end of the tefillah. It probably originates here in the Rosh Hashana Amidah, and then later is applied to the end of the tefillah. What does the Aleinu l'shabeach prayer say? So if you look at the Aleinu l'shabeach prayer, you'll notice it's a long one, but the Aleinu l'shabeach prayer states basically that we praise Hashem, we accept Hashem because He is Adon HaKol. He is the King. And that's the prayer of Aleinu l'shabeach, the concept that Hashem is the King, Hashem is the ruler of the world. And then we have, as I promised, right, 10 Pesukim. I'm showing you 9 right now. 10 Pesukim that back up this statement. So I'm just going to go through them quickly on the table from right to left. Right. So first, 3 Pesukim from the Torah. Adonai yimloch leolam ba'ed from Az Yashir, and Hashem will rule forever and ever. Lo hibit aven b'Yaakov, lo rama amal b'Yisrael, Hashem melokav imo, utruat melech bo, melech, again, Hashem is a king. Vahi b'shurun melech, there is amongst Israel a king. So 3 Pesukim talking about Hashem's kingship, all from the Torah. Then from the Tehillim, Kila Adonai HaMelucha, Hashem is the ruler of all the Goyim. Adonai Malach Ge'ut Lavesh, Hashem rules with glory. Se'u Sharim Rashechem, V'nasu Petchei Olam, gates, lift up your heads. Mizeh Melech HaGavod, who is the king? The holy king, of course, is Hashem. Then we turn to the Nevi'im, Ko Amar Hashem Melech Yisrael V'Go'alo Al Mitzvot, Hashem, king of Israel. Ani Rishon, Ani Acharon, I'm the first, I'm the last. Alu Moshim B'Har Tzion L'Shpot Et Haresav, Hayatal Olam Lucha. The world will be for Hashem, his kingship. All 9 of these Pesukim go and say that Hashem is the king, and basically back up our belief statement at the top of the page, which says that we believe that Hashem is the king. And finally, the pasuk which sums it all up, the pasuk from the Torah, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hashem's oneness makes himself the king. Hashem is our God. Hashem is the king. And what do we do as a result of all this? We said we believe Hashem is the king, and then we say, we ask for something else. And the ask is for Hashem to rule over the whole world. Right? That's basically what we're asking. Now, it's not to say that Hashem doesn't already rule over the world, but for that it's to be apparent for all, for everyone to see it. And then we say the statement which you may be familiar with, Beyda kol pa'ul ki ata fa'alto, v'yavin kol yatzur ki ata yitzarto, that every creature, every creation will recognize you are the creator, you are the handiwork, they are your handiwork, they have been created by you. That's the recognition that we're asking. So the way this beracha works is an example of the way all the berachot are going to work. Statement of faith that Hashem's the king. Backing it up with heavy backup, with Pesukim after Pesukim, showing what we believe has merit. It's not our own idea, but actually it comes from the Torah. And then finally saying, and hey, and because we believe this, we want something to happen. And that something that we want to have happen is Hashem's dominion to be recognized by all in the whole world. So that's the Malchuyot Tefillah. That's the first beracha that we have. And as we're going to explain, there's 3 of these berachot, but the first beracha that we do is to say that Hashem is the ruler, and it has major implications because it's our acceptance of his rulership upon us, but also our hope that he's going to show everyone that he is the king and that it's going to become apparent to all. Any questions?
Rabbi, I have a question and a comment.
Please.
So 2 things. First of all, a comment. It's helpful for anybody that's reading the Amidah. You notice that the word Shene'emar is before every pasuk. I always find that helpful. It helps me break up into the 9 Pesukim, right? The 3 Pesukim, Torah, Ketuvim, and Nevi'im, the word Shene'emar. Second one is a question. Why is Ketuvim placed before Nevi'im? Is there a reason? Any idea?
It's a great question, right? What you normally, just to clarify, to expand upon your question, I guess, what Bernie pointed out is normally you would put in the order of Tanach, right? Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, based on, at least according to some opinions, the level of inspiration, highest level being Torah, medium being Nevi'im, and lower level being Tehillim. So it's a good question as to why the order is kind of defied here. Why do we have Torah, then Tehillim, then Nevi'im? The truth is, I don't have an answer. I have not seen anywhere where it explains that clearly. So I don't, anything I would tell you is kind of just a guess or a gist feel. So I don't know. The only thing I could say, perhaps, is the nature of the Tehillim, as opposed to the nature of the Nevi'im. And it's just a feel, so I'm not positive I'm correct about this. But the Tehillim tend to be more statements about what is, and the Nevi'im tend to be, the statements in the Nevi'im tend to be more about statements of what will be in the future. So that being the case, perhaps, and I'm saying perhaps because it doesn't exactly fit into this, perhaps the reason Tehillim comes before Nevi'im is because it's more current or backwards looking, and Nevi'im are more forward looking. So perhaps that's the answer. Does that make any sense to you, Bernie, or no?
I like it. I like it. If I hear anything different, I'll let you know. But I never heard anything,
please.
so that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the best I could do. I don't know for sure, but that does fit the topic and the way I'm going to explain what we're doing here. So by the way, just to add to Bernie's statement, and Bernie is correct. When you see the Shene Emar within your tefillah, you know it's as it says. And I'm going to come back to this point in a little bit. I'm going to go quickly through the next piece because I can't do this topic full justice in the time that we have. But this is being recorded and I could share it with you. Also, I could share the slides. If anyone's interested, I'd be happy to share the slides, and you could use the slides to kind of be able to see the structure yourself. If anyone's interested in that, at the end, I'll put it in the chat. Okay. The next thing is zichronot. Now, zichronot means, the word zikaron means to remember. And if you look, you have here a similar structure. The same beracha fits into the same thing. Ataz zocher maseh olam upoked kol yetzurei kedem. It says, you remember the creation of the world and you have appointed every creature. And basically, the belief statement of zichronot is that Hashem, who is the king, which was in the previous beracha, and created all, he not only created it, but he has a purpose for each thing. Poked means an accounting, to take an accounting. Zocher means to remember, and the concept of zichronot means to remember. But what it basically means is that Hashem has an idea, a purpose, a meaning for everything that is in creation. And we believe that very strongly, that Hashem cares about what everything in creation is supposed to do, and then he holds them to task. Have you done it? Are you doing what you're supposed to do here? And here, again, same concept, 10 Pesukim. Not going to go through all of them right now, but you can see them more or less broken out. Hashem remembers Noach. Hashem remembers Bnei Yisrael in Mitzrayim. Hashem says in the future he will remember Bnei Yisrael when they're in trouble. Tehillim has a lot of about Zecher, and so too the Nevi'im. And interesting that a lot of it has to do with, as we're saying, the concept of this is a relationship that we have with Hashem. Hashem is not just the king, but we have a relationship with him, and that relationship is through, in general, what we'd call mitzvot. But it's not just about the mitzvot individually as good deeds, but more about what kind of life am I supposed to live? Am I supposed to live a life of purpose and the purpose that Hashem has created for me? If I do that, then I am doing what I'm supposed to do. And that's really this last pasuk as well. Hashem says that no matter what happens to Bnei Yisrael, he's always going to remember the original deal that he took us out of Egypt. When he took us out of Egypt, he said, you guys are going to be my guys. You guys are going to be my people. You're going to be my light unto the nation. And we may suffer. We may not be doing such a good job, and he may put us into exile or something like that. But at the end of the day, Hashem promises he'll always remember that that's our role. He'll always remember that that's what we're supposed to do. And to a certain degree, in the right time, in the right way, he'll always give us a second chance. And that's why we have this realization at the end, which says, or the request for realization, Akedat Yitzchak Zaro Hayom Berachamim Tiskor. And the Akedat Yitzchak, which is a major theme on the high holidays, of course, remember today and mention it, Baruch Ata Hashem Zocher HaBrit. We hope that Hashem will always remember the Berit and the deal that he has with us, the contract that he has with us, the covenant that he's made with us, that we'll always be his people. So it's not only that we recognize that the statement of belief is that Hashem remembers, cares, has a purpose for all. The statement of the hope for realization that we have is that he remembers us for what we are supposed to do for a positive thing, and that we continue to always be his people. I'm going a little bit, just going to go a little faster because I want to get to an overall point, is the shofarot. The shofarot is really, the shofarot is really a huge piece, right? And the shofarot is all about revelation. And the shofar in the Torah means a number of different things, but in the tefillah here, it seems very clear that the shofar is all about the revelation. And the shofar was there when Hashem revealed us at Har Sinai, as it says, you revealed yourself in a cloud of glory to all of Am Yisrael at Har Sinai. And then the rest of these Pesukim show the shofar being used for either some version of revelation or redemption. And the final pasuk, which it talks about how on the high holiday, on all the holidays, ובيום שמחתכם מועדיכם ראשי חודשיכם ותקעתם בחצוצרות עלותיכם סבכי שלומכם והיו לכם בזיכרונות פניכם אני אומר לכם. We should blow the shofar for the korbanot. We want to be able to serve Hashem, and the shofar is part of the service. So what are we saying at the end? We're asking for a realization. Tikash b'shofar gadol cherutenu. Hashem, blow the shofar for our freedom. V'sanes kabetz galyotenu. Gather in all the exiles. Bring us a full redemption. So the shofar is about revelation and redemption. And in fact, this kind of brings us back to where we were before. We can now take a step back and look at what this Amidah is all about. And the Amidah is about the three fundamental beliefs that Jewish people need to have, and our affirmation on Rosh Hashana of those beliefs. One, our belief in Hashem's creation of the world, B'ri'ah, right? Hashem is king. Why is he king? Because he created the world. Number two, the Zichronot is all about purpose, that we each have a purpose, and that everything in Hashem's creation has a purpose, and that's important. And finally, and then we want to fulfill that purpose. And finally, that Hashem not only created and had a purpose, but that he revealed himself to us through the words of the Torah and through other actions throughout history. And these are statements that we have to believe, and this is why it appears on Rosh Hashanah, is because we have to affirm these beliefs once a year to make sure that we never forget these things. And in fact, this class that I'm doing today and this breakdown of the Amidah, I give it every year. I give it every year because this is that important. These are, I hate to use this term because it's a Christian term, but these are our cardinal beliefs. The belief that Hashem created the world, the belief that he created it with a purpose, and the belief that he revealed himself to us through the Torah, through the Nevi'im. These are the fundamentals of what we believe about the past, but they each have a belief about the future as well, right? And that's this, right? Which is, we don't only believe that Hashem created the world, we believe that his rulership will become evident to all. And that's something we're still working on. We're praying for this to come true, that other people begin to appreciate what we know. We know Hashem created the world. We know Hashem is the ruler of the world, but not everybody else does. We want everyone else to appreciate that. We also want Hashem to remember, to take into account we want Hashem to recognize, hey, we've been good, we've tried hard, recognize that we did that, and also to recognize we need him to forgive us for certain things because we have a purpose that's left to fulfill. So the idea of the purpose plays a major role in our future. And finally, the fact that Hashem reveals himself to us, or has revealed himself to us through the Nivu'ah, through the Torah, also tells us, and he can do it again. You know, it's been a while since we can say that we fully feel Hashem's revelation, even though we have certain points in history, like the establishment of the State of Israel, or other great moments that we've had in history. We could say we sort of feel Hashem's presence, but we want to feel it completely. That's kind of like the, Mashiach type stuff. And that's what the shofar recognizes. So on Rosh Hashana, and I know I went through this really quickly, but on Rosh Hashana, where we take this time out to talk about our beliefs and to talk about our hopes. And they're intricately tied together. The idea that we believe very strongly in the concepts that we do of creation, of purpose, of revelation, means that we also believe in Hashem's dominion, in Hashem's oversight, and finally in Hashem's redemption of the world. These are core beliefs. These are things that we're praying for, and that's why this central tefillah and Amidah is so unusual. And I'm hopeful that by explaining the structure, the breakdown, seeing how it all works, you're able to have that much better of a quality of tefillah. What I would tell you to do, what I would suggest that you do, is take some time between now and Shabbat and Sunday and open the Machzor. Look at it in English, look at it in Hebrew, whichever language works for you, and see this structure. By seeing the structure, you'll have a much more organized tefillah. You'll understand what you're doing that much better. And I believe as a result, you'll have a much, much more meaningful tefillah. I'm going to stop here for any questions, and If not, I wish everyone a Skula Shanim Rabot. I'm actually going to put on the chat this the slides for this. Just give me 1 second.
Rabbi, will the slides stay up for a while if I can't get to them right now?
I'm gonna send it out right now. Hold on 1 second.
I can't do it. All right, I'll get it from you later.
I'm gonna put it in the chat. Hold on 1 second. It's gonna be in the chat.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm putting it in the chat right now. That didn't work. Hold on. There we go. Let's see. There you go. That will get you into any slides that you need.
Thank you.